Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pail, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure. Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jalen.
Can I close it, John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
Yeah, it's just me. What are we apologizing for? Nobody on the Garden Report yet. Josue, Pavon coming up shortly, I have been told. Had to relocate. There was some rock and roll music going on at the Garden. I'll also apologize. I'll apologize on behalf of the Celtics tonight, who also chose not to show up tonight. Yeah, it's a solo John Zannis show. Let's go. How long can I take this? I bet I can. I don't know. I'm sick of listening to myself already. Josue, once I get a thumbs up from you, I'll bring you in. But here we are. Yep, here he is. He's ready. Bobby Manning is there. Jimmy's off. Sherrod is off. Kristaps Porzingis is off, and the entire Celtics starting lineup was off tonight. They chose to sit this one out for the second time, and I can't remember when the Bucks game was, but no show against a team, a real let's see what these guys got. Can't wait to see the Celtics versus the Bucks. Nah, forget it. I'm not going to play tonight. They did it again, but this one was weird because there was no excuse, right? There's no back-to-back. Granted, Porzingis doesn't play and Porzingis is valuable, but man, the Celtics got punked tonight. This is as bad as they've looked. And this is the worst beatdown they've had. It's the first time they looked legitimately overmatched, like they played a better team. The Milwaukee one I thought was fluky. This just legit looked like they just got beaten by a tonight. It looked like just tonight. And I know they played the Clippers earlier in the year, and it wasn't the exact same personnel in that game as well. But yeah, it's the Boomer Hour. Let's do the Boomer Hour. Josue's here, but I'm getting a kick out of watching Josue laughing at me going solo right now. So I just decided to keep going. But I could bring him on. I could end this right now. Okay, I could end this right now, but I won't. We can go another minute. No, we'll bring on Josue here. We'll add him to the stage. What's up, my man?
Yo, that was the most John Zannis apology game I've ever seen. And I'm sitting here like, wait. There's no way after a blowout loss that he's apologizing. I'm like, for what? And then of course it was, no, you're apologizing on behalf of the Celtics. Very well done.
On behalf of you
done.
guys not showing up. Yeah, no, that's fine. And I will apologize here. But yes. So look, it's again, I get it. Everyone shut up. Seriously. I get it. Okay. We know every team has this. The Denver Nuggets recently lost by 40 points to someone. All this happens. It's the NBA. You see good teams, no shows all the time. It's perfectly normal. It doesn't mean anything. I get it. But if that's the case, then there's no show and there's nothing to talk about. So what are we going to sit here and for an hour just be like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay. I don't know. Does it matter? I'll ask you first. And I'm going to, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I'm screaming into my, you know what? You're going to carry this one solo. Go. You tell me why it matters.
Okay. This is why it matters, John, because when you perform at this level without Kristaps Porzingis, like, that scares me. And that's not to say that he's going to be out for a long term. You know, we're not talking, at least that's what Joe Mazzulla told us, but that's not the point. I mean, I want to see the Celtics team play at a high level with or without Kristaps Porzingis. You know, I don't want it to ever be a night where it's like, oh, this is the version of the Celtics going to show up now that Kristaps Porzingis isn't around, you know? And I think the Clippers fed off of that. I mean, listen, this is one of the better teams in the NBA. These guys won 12 out of their last 14 games since that loss against the Celtics, which, of course, happened without Kawhi Leonard. Obviously, they're a different team when he's in the lineup, but they presented so many problems for the Celtics because of that star power from Kawhi Leonard, for starters, right? You also have the athleticism, which I thought defensively, they're playing these guys man-to-man. I mean, you had defenders staying in front of Tatum and Brown, you know, with ease, essentially, you know, putting up a wall, challenging these guys to say, look, if you're going to beat us, you beat us from the perimeter. You're not coming in the paint. We're not giving up any high percentage shots.
And they made it really hard for them. And when they did take shots at the rim, They weren't great shots. A lot of those were off balance, flips over their head. Tatum got to the basket strong. Everything. I mean, Holiday
Credit
had
the
one
Clippers,
nice
man.
left-handed finish, but like everything Brown threw up there, he flipped it up. Holiday had some wild, shots that really didn't have much of a chance of going in. They were just flinging it, and then just ice cold. Look, you want to talk about the Clippers beat them. The law of averages beat them as well. You shoot 55% one game, the bill is going to come due. It came due. It came due tonight.
But again, John, this is the Clippers playing them straight up. I mean, let's face it, they didn't force a bunch of turnovers. What? Celtics finished with 8 in this one. There wasn't a whole lot of like, trap Tatum and trap Brown. No, it was just straight up man to man, take away their space or stay in front of them. And guys did that. Without Porzingis, it's just they're a different team. And I feel like the Clippers they knew the game plan. They knew how to make the Celtics look vulnerable, and they did throughout the entire night.
They made them look so. Again, I know you see this too. When the Celtics look bad, they can look really bad. And again, I understand this applies to a lot of other teams too. It's that live by the 3, die by the 3 approach. And I'm not going to sit here. 99% of the comments, Josue, while I'm in here, is Mazzulla. They're not going to win as long as Mazzulla's a coach. Mazzulla ball is going to be the end of them. It works in the regular season. It doesn't work in the playoffs. What happens when you go cold? We get it. The entire league plays this way. Okay, they do. But you're right. The Celtics are a little bit, in the past, have been too reliant. Porzingis is the great game changer, the equation changer for the Celtics. It gives them an inside presence, gives them an element that's really difficult to defend, and makes it so it's not that same predictable offense that they've run back the past couple of years, which is if the threes fall, they win. I mean, last year was ridiculous. Plus 40%, they win. Under 40, they lose. Like automatic. It was just, or not lose all of them, but the percentage was crazy. It's not the same team this year. So this really does heighten how much they need Kristaps. But there is concern of how sustainable is this in the playoffs when the defense ratchets up and XYZ. And every time you have games like this, it'll be like, well, this is what Robot Mazzulla wants them to do. And and so again, I'll ask you, fair or not fair? And I'm not making excuses. This is how the league plays. The league loves drive and kick. They love the corner threes, and this is the way. But the Celtics, again, I'll always feel better about them, Josue, when they're able to generate their own easy baskets, right? When they're reliant, only on the 3, it's much, much harder. When on a night like this, it makes it almost impossible.
Right, it does, especially when the ball isn't, moving the way it does. When the Celtics are really, it's that equal opportunity offense that we've been seeing, where guys are getting those open looks. You're looking for that open shot. I just think they didn't do it as much as the Clippers. I feel like the Clippers took that away from them, and maybe that's again credit the Clippers for their defense, but you wonder in terms of executing on the offensive end of the floor, what kind of schemes and different tactics that Joe Mazzulla can input when Kristaps Porzingis is not in the lineup. I wanted to see more adjustments in that second half, especially. But when you have a team just straight up taking the Celtics' lunch money the way they did in that third quarter, like coming out of halftime, you're like, well, I don't think these guys have enough. I mean, clearly they didn't. I mean, before it got out to a 30-point deficit, but even before that, you just didn't see. You didn't see that switch, that change in their offensive approach. And the closest thing to it was Tatum going straight to the hoop right out of the gate to start the second half. He makes a contested 3, not a terrible shot, but a good take. And the Clippers just went right back into their run. And I feel like the Celtics defense is just heading back. Transition D was awful. I thought the Clippers did a really good job of pushing the ball, controlling the pace. All the stuff that Mazzulla is usually works in his team's favor. It just wasn't the case, especially in that second half coming out of halftime.
Yeah, and I don't know if this number is good, but 10-2, I would believe that. I would say, and again, Josue, I don't know what's going on behind you, but it sounds like you're like at the mess hall and everybody just came in to eat or something. So
it's like the whole half the beach just all wants to have a conversation right. But they usually don't do this. But yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so we'll hang on there and we'll hope that it thins out a little bit. And I'll just filibuster and we'll go back to the solo Zannis show. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, we can go a lot of different directions with this, but they have won without KP. And I mentioned this, I put it out in a tweet and, I got yelled at a little bit. But last 4 games against the other teams with the best records in the Eastern Conference in the NBA, blowout losses to the Clippers and the Bucks, and a close home loss to Denver, and an overtime win where they came back without Porzingis against Minnesota. Two of those three losses, Kristaps Porzingis did play. And again, it's a small sample size, but these are the teams, right? These are the teams that you're going to play. It's also, wrapped around a couple of Pacers losses too, and you're seeing against some better competition that they've kind of run into, I wouldn't say a wall, but they're running into some resistance.
Oh yeah, especially a team on the second half of back-to-back, man. It's impressive.
Yeah. So I mean, again, there was no excuse for them to come out and suck the way they sucked tonight, but they sucked, and everyone's mad. Everyone's really upset. I'm not going into we're frauds. I'm not going into this team is soft. I'm not doing any of that stuff. But you see where you can be vulnerable sometimes. And the Clippers made you look like exposed some weaknesses tonight.
Yeah, they did in a big way. And again, especially without Porzingis. And just to let you know what's going on, Tatum spoke already. I mean, that's how fast this thing is. That's why half the media is already back, which is surprising. This is the quickest post game I've ever seen. Bobby will give us the latest. I'm sure he's still finishing things up in the locker room, but I've never seen anything like. Have you? I mean, that was. No,
I know. Ahmed had told me.
He told you? Yeah, I was like, that's why I was so confused. Already. I'm like, why is everyone here right now? But yeah, they spoke already. So I'm sure they just want to put this in the rear view. Obviously, considering the longest homestand of the season just kicked off, so it's off to a rough start. But you look at how this team's going to bounce back Monday, Tuesday. I'm almost hoping that Porzingis isn't active, to be honest with you, John, because I want to see this team figure this thing out without him. Yeah, exactly. Fix it. And then obviously down the road, you got a big matchup against the Lakers Thursday night. But no, as Bill Belichick would say, on to the Pelicans, which is Monday, the first half of a back-to-back. I want to see the Celtics win both of these games. Like the response from this type of performance, I think is going to speak volumes as to where they're at mentally right now. And what I mean by that is not that they're quote-unquote checked out or whatever, but that I just finished doing an episode with Max today saying that these guys have just reached their stride. I mean, I want to chalk this up as a one-off, but again, as other teams kind of get that second time to face the Celtics team, and without Kristaps Porzingis, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond, because obviously this isn't the first time the Clippers faced the Celtics, and they clearly fixed a lot compared to what we saw on December 23rd against the Celtics. Yeah. Now, again, of course, no Kawhi Leonard is a big part of that one. But still, the Clippers.
No, they stomped them.
They stomped them, man. And again, to the streak that they were on heading into this one, on the second night of a back-to-back on the road, that's impressive, man. Man, look out for the Clippers for sure. I don't know if they can win the West, which is obviously the only way that these two teams would meet in the playoffs. But man, they had a lot of. They just gave us a lot of issues, man. A lot of fits. And again, it's the star power, it's the athleticism, it's the defense, it's that tough, physicality that I think really did the Celtics in.
Yeah. So let's go down the line. I don't want to go player by player because they all were bad, but I will just say, if I'm following only the chat in terms of who the chat, most of their ire is directed towards. Mazzulla won. We kind of talked about it, and I think the Mazzulla ball thing, while interesting and potentially relevant, is also kind of a tired conversation. We've had it a bunch of times, and I think every time they have cold shooting nights, we bring it up again, and I think we're just kind of saying the same thing over and over again. If you're deeply concerned by it, I get it. I know there are a lot of people who are, when it comes playoff time, for sure, that it could be a thing that could be their undoing, and you see them go cold like in a series against the Heat, and you lose to an inferior team, and then all of this talent and all of whatever you were doing was wasted because you play one way and that way didn't work for this small sample size of games, and that's that. Your season's over. But I don't think we've seen that from them this year. I think we've seen them win multiple ways, though I still would like to see more easy baskets. I'm always want to see that. But the next guy on the list, Josue, that's catching a lot of heat right now, Luke just gets, that's not fair. Luke's just getting.
He should be catching strays. He shouldn't be catching directs.
Exactly. It's more strays. He's catching strays. People, I don't know why, just because whatever they did. But it's
because he's not Porzingis. Okay, clearly he's not, guys. Sorry.
It's Al. where people are kind of because again, you see him start, you see him be totally ineffective. It kind of makes you realize and remember and appreciate obviously what Porzingis brings. And then nights like this, the entire chat is Alice cooked. I'm not ready to go there either, but I do definitely think bench is perfect, and I don't want to bring Bobby out here and say, like, why did you lobby for him to start? He's so perfectly suited to be coming off the bench here. But it does, a game like this kind of highlights where, like, whoa, thank goodness you've got Porzingis, because Al really is meant to come off the bench and do his thing and play defense and, play smart. And, but tonight was a rough one.
Yeah, man, it's one of those nights where, he's not facing the secondary defenses. You're in there with the starters, and this is a team that was hungry. I feel like going into this one again, with the streak that they've been on, considering what happened in LA the last time these two teams met, it was a tough matchup for them, especially up front, man. Credit to between Plumlee and Daniel Tice, man, they didn't make anything easy for the Celtics in terms of the screening, freeing up their guys, rebounding. I just felt like, especially in transition, Al was at some points huffing and puffing. It seemed like, just couldn't find his offense. And even in the attempts that he took, they didn't look great. What was it? 4 3-pointers? Yeah, 0 for 4. Another missed shot from inside the arc. Just couldn't find his rhythm at all. It just goes to show you, man, some certain particular matchups, man, when he's in the starting lineup, it really thins out what you have coming off the bench. And this is a perfect example of that.
There's no interior presence when he's not knocking down the
shots. Because he's forced to be that guy, right? Yeah, that's a good point as well, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and look, people can say what they want about Kornet, but this is one of his better performances, if you ask me. He was instrumental in just trying to disrupt those lobs, when Clippers got really comfortable with just there was someone just readily available to catch an alley-oop. I thought he disrupted a couple of those. He finished down low as well. He had 12 points in this one, or 11 points, 5 rebounds. I mean, it's pretty solid coming off the bench, but when you're missing so much up front in the starting five, when Al's having such a rough night, Clippers took advantage. They took advantage for sure, and that's part of the reason why I think Kornet got stuck in the paint when we shouldn't have been, when he got dunked on in that fourth quarter, which at that point the game was already done. But yeah.
Kornet's 7-2 going on 6-2 sometimes when he's down there by himself in the paint. But
these guys can fly, man. You saw what Terrence Mann did to Drew Holiday, man. He dunked on him like it was nothing. And, yeah.
So man. I didn't get the Al hatred because he is, he's 137 years old. I just don't think it's fair.
Minus 100, but yeah.
Joe Lewis, 143 years old. Sorry. But look, and Tatum was okay. Brown was brutal. I mean, again, you're gonna pin it on the guys who got to get you there. White definitely has cooled down since everyone was like, "This guy's an all-star."
I know, man. Like, he's not helping his case right now.
He's great, but he's definitely cooled down a little bit. Holiday's been great in terms of knocking down the three, but he had a bad game tonight too, and Brown was terrible. So I mean, they were terrible.
I hate that version of Brown too, man.
Ugh,
terrible. It wasn't even like
I'm not allowed to go there. When I do, it's an agenda. But he was terrible tonight. Oh my goodness, they were all terrible, but he was one of them.
Yeah, he was. He was. This
Tatum all that it was ended up with a minus 32. I mean, he was kind of stuck in there when the game got ridiculous. When the game really got stupid.
Yeah, I thought he was trying to get himself ejected, man, but I think that was just a pure reaction. Just to he was like, what now? Like, can I get something? I mean, granted, the reason why he got it was just the classic, hands in the air. I mean, referees are now, they're just, if they're feeling a certain type of way, they're just going to slap him with a technical foul. And, the way he was arguing, I thought he might get himself tossed, but yeah, it's one of those games, man. I just feel like when you needed just at least that one run that could give this team some life in that third quarter, it just never came. And then you start thinking to yourself, are the Celtics going to score 40 points before the end of this? Or no, in the second quarter, rather. And then going into the third, again, Tatum gets out that quick those 5 points in like 2 minutes. And that was the only sign of life I feel like we saw from the Celtics in that third quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Awful all the way around.
Man, but these Clippers, they were happy, man. I think it's one of their favorite wins of the season for sure. It's like I've never seen these guys, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking about what Ty Lue said because I asked him about this terrific run that they've had ever since that loss against the Celtics, and he's like, man, it's those guys, the stars, figuring out how to play with one another and figuring out what works best and exploring particular matchups, and then an hour later, that's exactly how they executed offensively, exploring matchups that they knew would work in their favor and just playing really smart basketball and taking care of the ball as well. And then the defense, to me, was really the difference. The way they defended, and Kawhi Leonard hitting some tough shots, but it wasn't just him. It was a lot of these guys.
Yeah. We might have some post game sound. Do we have it? No, we're gonna hear from Joe Mazzulla in a little bit here.
I'm working on it now.
As the Celtics. So yeah, you got eyes on Amit?
Yeah, I got eyes on Amit right now.
I got eyes on Amit. In the meantime,
I don't know what he did, but I just gave him one of these, and this room is quiet down tremendously. So good looks, Amit. Yeah, respect. Yeah.
So just let you guys know, FanDuel NFL Weekend Conference Championship Sunday is tomorrow.
Yeah.
The action. I'll tell you what I think is going to happen, but I actually don't know I got to think about it first. But
you're trying to influence some bets right now, John? Trying to influence people.
While I'm thinking about it, you guys run over and sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston. Once again, FanDuel.com/Boston. $150 in bonus bets when you place a $5 bet. That's right. Deposit 10, bet 5, win or lose, no matter what. As soon as that game is over and the bet resolves, bang, 150 bonus bets go into your account. You can use those to make actual bets and win actual money. So again, check it out. Restrictions do apply. Once again, that is FanDuel.com/Boston. 150 in bonus bets when you place a $5 bet. Josue, who do you like?
Man, you mean like for the Super Bowl, or just talking about the AFC?
There's 2 games tomorrow.
No, I know, but I'm saying, like, you're asking for one matchup, or you're just saying, like, who's going to win?
Who do you like? What do you like? Chiefs, Ravens. Who do you like there?
I'm going Chiefs, and then I'm going to go I kind of want to give it to the Lions, but we'll see.
I love it.
Chiefs, Lions, Super Bowl. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen, but I could definitely be wrong.
Okay, I like that. I support that. I would say I thought all year long that the Niners were so far and away the best team in the NFL, but then you just see those games when Purdy just doesn't have it, and when that happens, they can really come down to earth. But I'm still going. I'm going with the boring picks. I'm going with the Niners and the Ravens. Even though I hate betting against Mahomes, I'm a massive Mahomes fan. So but I don't think so. I think it's going to happen. And honestly, everyone wants to see it. Lions shocking the world. Absolutely. Let's bring in.
You think he'll have that dynasty like Brady did?
I don't know. Like I said it on the last show, I think he's already the second best quarterback in the NFL history, and he's only going to add to that resume. But I've never seen anybody like him in my life in terms of just how he plays. It's just amazing to me. Bobby, tell us something. Anything.
Yeah. What? Especially the press conferences. What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, they went missed shots as you expected them to, and
we got good looks. Did we get good looks?
Yeah, in the first half. Now. The third quarter was a problem. There's no doubt about it. And even Joe acknowledged that. Turnovers, missed shots, missed layups. I think they shot like 40, had the number 14 to 32 around the rim through 3 quarters, 44%.
Why don't you ask me about layups, huh? Why don't you ask me about layups, Bobby?
Yeah, so layups were a big problem in this one.
They call them layups, but I thought a lot of them were not great shots. They got close to the rim and really weren't all the way
Just
they wanted
forced
to
them
be.
up.
Weird force-ups, flip-ups, really not. It'll say within 5 feet, but a lot of those were not quality shots.
Yeah, for sure, and well contested too by the Clippers defense.
Yes.
Clippers, I think this does qualify as a game where you can say a really good team on the other side played incredible and just completely destroyed you in this one. Now, just like, as we talked about after Thursday, John, the shooting was ridiculous, but it still would have been a really good, convincing win, even without the historic shooting in that game. This still would have been a pretty bad loss, even with a little better shooting that would have made it closer in the end. So, you still take away several things from it. The switching still bothers this team. They've gotten better against it in spots, but against a team like this where you have size at every position, Jason said to me that it wasn't quite clear where to attack on this defense. And you saw it. Like, were you going to go after Terrence Mann? That was probably the most likely candidate there. But especially if you're trying to post up, even Harden's not a mismatch in that sense. He's pretty strong if you're trying to attack him on the block. Probably could have put him in some actions, but the Clippers were doubling on the ball, bringing a guy down to that, roll man, whether it was Horford or Cornette. And they toss it to the corners, and they miss those shots a lot. I thought Holiday especially got some really good looks in the first half there. So, decent passing. Overall, the turnovers, they're still a little too high for the team right now. And then, of course, you got to finish better at the basket and get to the free throw line more often. They only went to the line 10 times in 3 quarters there. So, you can hold them to a high standard, John. This is the kind of team you're going to see late in the playoffs that's able to be disruptive against you, that's able to do some weird things defensively that don't allow you to get the shots you would ideally want. And we've talked about this, especially I think it was Ball Don't Stop, John, the Twitter account there that kind of went on a tirade against what this team's going to look like in the playoffs. A little strong, obviously, given how well they've played so far.
You're ignoring the Porzingis factor, which changes that dynamic a little bit from years past, right?
For sure. And if they're fully healthy in this one, they're a lot more competitive. There's going to be some mismatches down low, even against strong post defenders that he's just able to shoot right over. And Horford doesn't give you that. Cornette tried to go the post up a couple times. Didn't go great. So you just didn't have that dynamic in this game. And that, along with offensive rebounds, which they got a lot of in this game, but couldn't turn them into points ever. Those two factors have kind of balanced them out on some bad shooting nights. And in this game, they weren't able to find points in any other manner.
Yeah.
They couldn't get out on the run either, really.
Nope, not at all. And I know Joe said it. One of the things that he said that I saw you and a bunch of the other reporters tweeting that the bad offense really impacted their defense tremendously because it was just hard to recover because they're just missing so many shots. And for what it's worth, the Clippers weren't really hitting that many early either.
No, it was 6-5, like late into the third quarter in terms of threes.
They were both horrible from 3 in the first half. So, it really was, as you said, the third quarter there, which is frustrating because you kind of got a pass playing that badly in the first half and still being within striking distance. And then you just went dead silent. I forget what the stretch was, but it was about 5:40. Almost 6 minutes without a basket on a 20-0 run and lights out. So here's Joe talking about getting their asses kicked by a good team on their home floor.
The character of your team. I think, like I said, it's more about balance, right? And so to me, there's no coincidence that the two extremes happened one after another. And I think those can be gifts when you look at them properly and keep you balanced and keep you humble and just keep you in check, right? You're never as good as you think you are. You're never as bad as you think you are. And I think it's important. We always talk about adversity, but adversity is always looked at as a like something negative happens to you. But to me, one of the hardest things to do is win consistently, right, all the time, and handle success. And that's just as hard as handling losing, is being able to handle success, right? So I think regardless, you just you focus on the character of your team, and our guys they'll bounce back. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't disagree, right?
Especially that adversity take.
Yeah, you can absolutely learn from it. I don't disagree at all. But I've also heard them say we don't even think about it. We just flush it. So I think whatever kind of plays here is fine. But I mean, that's reasonable, reasonable from Joe. That's kind of the point, right? But you do hope it's a little bit humbling, right? And you know what? We're victims. We do it all the time. I mean, geez. The last game, we're like, this team is the greatest thing. And, and fans do too. And then, they lose this one and it's, this team's never going to win as long as Joe's the coach and Al is cooked and Brown is a $300 million mistake. So, I mean, we flip fast, on these things. And you're right, getting high and low. And again, it's what Boston sports fans do, overreact to everything, positive and negative. But you wonder how the players process these things. Does self-doubt creep in, or are they able to kind of wipe it and move on?
I think they're able to wipe it. Yeah. Where I feel like last year or even the year before that, they would carry over, that demeanor, or they'd be one or two runs on the wrong end.
State loss. It literally knocked them out of orbit for 30
Yeah,
games.
exactly. That's a perfect example. And that was the Christmas game, right? Or around that time. So yeah, I don't think that's the case with these guys. However, how they respond in the next two, I think is going to be interesting because again, it'll be without Porzingis, and I want to see how they do, especially against a team like the Pacers, who've obviously made a trade to kind of up their chances and the standings and all that. And again, it's just a character thing for me. I want to see how they respond, and historically, at least this season, they've usually responded in a good way. In a big way.
Yeah. One thing you've heard last year, to go back to what Josue said there too, after certain games, would be doubts about the game plan, right, John? Remember that Knicks game last year? Jalen said, yeah, we shot way too many threes in this one. And I think Malcolm at different points called into question some of the things they did.
Yeah,
you heard a lot of that throughout the course of the regular season this year. And I think the messaging and the stance by players and coaches alike has been pretty collective after losses this year. And I think that's a big reason I've been confident in Joe this year, is that he's been able to maintain such an aligned locker room. There'd be spots certainly this season, especially early, maybe after that Hornets game, where guys could have been like, yeah, I don't know how I'm being used right now. I don't really know my role. Yeah. But that hasn't happened at all this season. So I think that's a big reason that they haven't had extended lulls.
Well, I mean, it hasn't happened because it was established early, despite the protestations of Bobby Manning, who kept wanting to insert Al Horford into the starting lineup.
We'll just call it top six. We'll call it top six, John.
From the moment,
top six was established.
Our six starters. From the moment they traded for Holiday, you knew what this was going to look like. Almost everybody knew. And then it's locked, right? And then it was Horford. And even, Joe went as far as to say it, like, we got friggin', our top six and Peyton and Luke and Sam, and that's pretty much our guys. So there's been no change to that all year. The Get Ready crew has been running open auditions all year, for who could be the 10th guy or step in.
They stay ready, John. They don't get ready. They're always ready.
They stay ready. They stay ready.
SRC, sorry, man. Don't get it twisted.
Stay ready crew.
SRC.
They stay ready. Right. But other than that, there's nothing to mess around. Last year, you did have you had the three guards and you're closing with the wrong lineups all the time. Sometimes Rob comes back, double big, no double big. What are we doing? It was a little bit more confusing. I felt like Joe was feeling it out. He actually didn't have it. Based on just the personnel this year, they actually don't have the ability. So I don't know how much I'm putting it on Joe. When Joe had a bit of a more complicated situation, he kind of made a mess out of it last year. This year, it's so basic. Any one of us could coach the team at least through the first couple quarters, just do you guys play and then I'll see you later, so again, it's why I don't give coaches tons of blame and I don't give because I don't.
But it's the messaging too, especially steering them out of some of the losses and different things they need to emphasize. This game interests me in particular because after that Warriors game that you mentioned, John, they admitted they had to revamp the offense a little bit, change some things, pick up their pace, especially to avoid some of the switching defenses they were going to go against. And one of them was the Clippers, who they beat, scoring 145 points in that game right before Christmas there. So they have figured out that, I'd say, biggest issue they have are in teams that are able to switch 1 through 5 against them and, be a little bit more disruptive on the defensive side of the ball, slow them down, grind them to a halt, really flatten out their offense. Those are the teams, and the Warriors have done a great job with it. I'm trying to think of some other teams. Timberwolves did it well, I felt like, especially with some of the stuff they did with their big men. Joe thought they pulled up the big and, were able to get in some passing lanes here in ways that really just made the Celtics very uncertain of what they were doing offensively. And I think you saw it most in those possessions Horford had on the high post. He's such a decisive, smart passer, John. And in this game, he just looked like a mess. This was one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. Obviously, he didn't score, missed all his shots, but he also didn't make good plays with the ball in his hands here. And he's a guy you rely on for that, especially with Porzingis down. So they were tough on him. They forced turnovers on him, Tatum, all the primary ball handlers. And I didn't get a chance to look at it, but I feel like this is probably the first game ever where White and Horford didn't make a shot in a game, which is a pretty big part of their lackluster offensive performance here. So it was definitely a missed shots game, but it was also a schematic win for the Clippers, who were able to do some things defensively that really threw the Celtics off.
Yeah, really threw them off. And again,
I hate the missed shots thing. I really do.
I do too.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like you made it so hard for them that I felt like the Celtics, like some of the not layouts, but some of the takes to the rim should have come easier, but it didn't. But because they were the few that did come easy, they would miss them because I feel like they were so used to that resistance, and that's just a sign of a great defense, just handling you mentally throughout the first 2.5 quarters. Especially in that third where they really broke things open, and that was the game.
You know why I hate it, John? They're not going into the film room tomorrow and throwing up their hands and saying, we just missed shots, let's go home. Like, it's not that simple a lot of the times to me. Like, I think it almost, especially, when they've said it in different spots, is trying to pull some of the credit away from what their opponent did there. And again, I'm asking certain things the Clippers did well after this game. Clearly, they came into this game with an approach that was effective and disruptive and highlighted a weakness for Boston.
Right.
I think that's human nature. Nobody wants to admit like, oh, geez, they just did stuff we can't deal with. Like if it happens over a 7-game series, you're forced to acknowledge, okay, they did it. But as a one-off, it is very easy to say like, we do one or two things differently. We could have turned this game around. A couple of those shots fall, and you really do think that. And I think a lot of people think that.
But was that the case here?
It might not be the case, but it's easy for a player to think it because it's just, they've got egos, and rightfully so. They're, they have every reason to believe that they're the shit. So I don't think they walk away from this thing and they're like, oh man, we faced those guys where we got some problems because they really did some things to us. I think they're thinking, okay, next time not going to be like this. I'll tell you that. Right. So I don't think they look at it that way, but we do. I mean, Scal said it 100 times during the broadcast. This might be the most complete team they've played. Like this team really gave them fits.
I think it's the most compatible top to bottom team, or comparable rather to Boston, spreading out. And Josue and I did a pregame video. Josue was pretty convinced that they were going to lose this game, and you look at what you're facing on the other side, especially when Kawhi's in there, and he was so efficient in this game again, so at ease. You can't speed him up. You can't scheme to really stop him because he has so much around him, and he's really not the point of attack as a passer now because they have Harden. They're able to do a lot on both ends of the floor that if this was the finals, and it very well could be, Harden aside, and that's a conversation for another day, you'd be very worried about this team in a playoff series, I think. They definitely don't have a very intimidating road environment, like maybe some other teams would, but this team's for real. They look like they're for real. They have a lot, especially at the big man position, too. I mean, you're down Zubac, and you put Plumlee out there, who's being disruptive, and then Tice comes off the bench with 16 and 3 blocks. They got a lot. They're deep. They have scorers and creators at so many different positions. And again, they weren't great offensively in this one. They were pretty flat too, but defensively, they did some stuff that really impressed me.
Yeah, no question, man. You can't forget who's leading this team, right? And Ty Lue, his coaching staff, obviously Celtics background, but also just experienced guys who could weave their team through a best-of-7 series and give them a shot in that Game 7, if you ask me. It's a coin flip, hypothetically, right? If these two teams were to meet each other, I'd say it's a coin flip, honestly, in a best-of-7 series. It's going to be, if you ask me, probably going to be a lot harder for the Clippers to get there compared to the Celtics. But if that were to happen hypothetically, man, that would be one heck of an NBA Finals series. Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, I just don't get caught up in like finals preview stuff because you just got to get there.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you're facing a pretty damn good team. You could say good things about anybody who's going to possibly be there, and the Clippers are one of them. Denver's one of them.
Denver's the other one. I was going to say, yeah.
And you talk about OKC and Minnesota. Everyone thinks they might be upstarts, and it's a little too soon, a year too soon. They're too young. So
upstarts. I like that, yeah.
I think you look at those two teams the most and say, okay, We've seen them. We've seen them here. Got it. Okay. We have no idea what they have. But, you're not really
Oh,
concerned with.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Kind
that
of
was
drowned
weird.
out for a second.
Yeah.
You're not really concerned with the finals matchup because once you get there, you're like, great. We made it. So,
Right.
Well, we
The
play along the
momentum
way.
is complete. The momentum is completely different, right?
is Luke okay though? That's the thing. That's what we're really got to get to.
Probably long term, but he's definitely going to miss a little time here, I would think, if he came up lame with the hamstring. So, not a huge deal, but simultaneously with Porzingis, it's not ideal, especially coming in the Monday's game against
That gives us
Back to back
Pelicans
coming
on
up
Monday,
too.
right?
Yeah.
It gives us a chance to fall
It's
in love
Kata
with
time.
Kata all over again.
Kata time. Yeah.
It could be a game there where Kata has to start.
I think that's the move for Monday for sure. Because on the second half of that
No, I
back to
think
back,
it's.
you want one of those guys back in the mix.
Oh, that's a good point because it's an East matchup. But matchup-wise, it's tough because both of those front lines are pretty.
Because Al's not going to play. Al won't play Tuesday unless you sit him for Monday, which I'd be surprised.
Well, I thought you just said the opposite. You want to play him against Indy.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying though. Like I would like them to line it up that way so that you don't have to worry about bringing back Porzingis. Before you hopped on, Bobby, I don't like the idea of bringing him back throughout this back-to-back stretch. I want to see this team continue without him at least for the next 3 days.
Yeah, no, I think you play Horford against Indy.
Right. Well, that's what I mean though, because then if you sit him, you have him for against Indy instead of not having either one.
Yeah, I mean,
but Monday would be the Kata game.
Listen, we've seen them down a couple bigs and figure it out. 10-2 without Porzingis
Lamar
this year
Stevens
coming into
playing
this
the
one.
5. Yeah.
They won a game with Lamar Stevens starting, so they'll figure it out. It's not completely burdensome.
Is that the Orlando game?
Yeah.
One of the 2 Orlando games, yeah.
Yeah, so they've been here before, namely that miniseries, and they succeeded in that spot. So, again, you come away from this one, maybe if they were like 5-5, John, or if this was a crunch time loss where they've been a little shaky without Porzingis, you say that's a major issue here. But this is unlike any game they've really played so far without Porzingis here. I guess the one thing you would look at here, and I know Drew got asked about it after, is a modest record against the league's best teams. The 1-1 against the Bucks, which obviously you kind of flushed that loss. The Nuggets loss. Mixed results against Philly and some of the. And that's going to be the case for any team really going up against the top teams in the league. But they're haven't been the best against some of the top competition in the league. You got that Thunder loss, 1-1 against the Wolves.
So I put that out there. Their last 4 games, and I tweeted it earlier. They're 1-3 in their last 4 games against the other top 5 among the top 5 teams. The top 5 records in basketball: Celtics, OKC, Minnesota, the Bucks, and the Clippers. Their last run through that those teams: 2 blowout losses, Bucks and Clippers. Bucks was the back-to-back, but again, they played everybody. They just didn't show up. Clippers, again, no Porzingis, didn't show up. Nuggets, they lost to with the full lineup, which was a bummer because that was a very winnable game. And they did beat Minnesota, that come-from-behind game, also without Porzingis, and they were able to win that one in overtime. That was a good game there. So, again, that's your last foray through the top teams in the NBA. And again, everyone's going to say, small sample size. They beat them last time. And you're right. They beat Minnesota. They lost to them the time before that. They've beaten Philly, recently. They've lost a couple to Indiana. I think 2 of their last 3 to Indiana. So you're playing better teams. Really, that's all that matters. Like, that's who you're sizing yourself up against. There's some really good teams out there. And so that's why when you get these
what
games,
we're really learning, John, is that they're not miles, and we said this last year when they had that ridiculous start. They're not miles and miles better than anybody, and that's obviously the case.
Last year we were saying they were, because I really do think there is. I think you can have off nights at any given time. I still think there's a bit of separation between them and the other teams in the East, but we've seen like a night the Celtics can look bad and other teams can occasionally make them look bad. It's just what happens over a 7-game series. Over one game, I'm not super worried, and I'm not going to overreact necessarily to a win or a loss there, but you're really only sizing yourself up against 6, 7, 8 teams total. And so when they come into town, the Denver or the Clippers, or you go to Milwaukee, you're kind of like, all right, let's see what we got. And when you have 2 incredibly disappointing games like they had against Milwaukee and tonight, and then you have a letdown against Denver, it's a little deflating. It deflates that unstoppable kind of balloon that that everyone kind of the pedestal we've kind of put them on.
Yeah, man. I thought they found their stride this season. Honestly, going into this game, I thought this would be a great way to start the homestand. I mean, I thought this would be a tough one. I just didn't expect the gap to be this large between in the final score. But yeah, I want to see this team respond, but I also want to see what Tatum and Brown, go back to what they were doing. How they got out to the start, especially with what happened on the road and coming into this homestand. So we'll see how they respond.
Okay. So yeah, we will. Bobby, anything else to wrap it? We got a bunch of games coming. We're going to keep this one a little short tonight, but we got a lot coming back with a packed week of games from the Garden. Anything?
Good matchups, too.
Good matchups.
Yeah, nothing particular from this one. Obviously, they just got blown away. I did find it interesting that they couldn't get to their post-ups here, couldn't get to the offensive rebounds, couldn't get to some of those other things that they've used to balance themselves out this year. And listen, those are things that make you feel good about them, that they have some counters to bad shooting nights. I actually looked, they're over 500 when they shoot below league average from three. And that remains the case after this game. I think they're like 11-8 or something like that. And
they've been much better at that this year. Yeah,
I think it was like 13-19 last year. So that's a big point of improvement if you're comparing the seasons.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt about it. So as we said, thank you guys for joining us. Sorry we're a little late. The entire crew was down at the Garden, and Josue was trying to figure out where to go from because it was loud everywhere he went. So we do apologize there.
Yeah, they have a fan appreciation thing going on. So yeah, a lot of people after the game hanging around.
Bunch of games. Everybody enjoy your Sunday. We've got games coming back Monday and Tuesday, and then Thursday, and again on the
Lakers
weekend.
Thursday,
Saturday.
Lakers Thursday.
Lakers Thursday.
Yeah. So we are jam-packed. We've got nonstop action here. So make sure you check it out. We are going to say good night to y'all, and we'll see y'all on Monday.
Wait, Amit's got an outro for us, I think.
No, he doesn't.
He said he was going to work on an outro.
He had a phenomenal game. Forfeit's out. I think it's an option. That did not sound like a chair.
It was a freaking chair. It does sound like a chair.